He is an excellent special forces soldier, and she is a female college student who has not yet graduated. But this is such a love movie, but it ended the box office myth of Avatar. Just a glance he fell in love with the girl in front of him, but seeing them in a couple, this makes him a little lonely and sad. But at that moment, the girl's bag accidentally fell into the sea. So John did not hesitate to jump off the observation deck. The man tried to force his way down, but John didn't care about him. The girl kept expressing her gratitude to John and invited him to join the party tonight. But John was too shy and passed up the opportunity, and he was so nervous and even took the wrong direction. So he had to turn back awkwardly, and so the two talked again, and John agreed to the party tonight. Anna's entrance. The guy who was after her was flirting with John, and Anna reminds him not to mess with a special forces soldier.
Make fun of a guy who can kill you with his bare hands.
Oh. Ooh, big guy.
And so the two talk from day to night. Seems to have an endless conversation, looking at the bright moon on the beach. Anna sighed from different angles why the moon is sometimes big and sometimes small. And John told her, if you hold out your thumb and close one eye, you'll see that the moon is actually not as big as your thumb. After the party was over, John shyly asked Anna an invitation to a date tomorrow, and Anna didn't hesitate to say yes. The next day, they met at a restaurant. Hearing that John was raised by his father alone, Anna offered to visit, although a little reluctant, but John took Anna to his home. It turned out that John's father was severely autistic. He didn't like to talk to strangers. He was only interested in collecting coins. John was worried that his father would leave a bad impression on Anna, but surprisingly, father and Anna got along very well, and Anna, on the occasion of his farewell, after giving him a kiss, also allayed all John's fears. And so, after this kiss, the two of them established a relationship for the rest of their lives. They held hands. They walked happily through the streets of the city. In the shimmering sunset, they played and played on the beach together all the time. And John found Anna is a very kind girl. Not only did she not have any bad habits, but also often as a volunteer, helped to build new houses for the affected families. But the good times are always too short. Anna had to return to school at the end of the summer, and John had to return to the army, finish the last year of his military career. And although his father was sad to see him go, but he was quiet, self-absorbed. He never said a word to warm his heart in parting. What kind of movie is it? Can break the box office myth of Avatar. On the way back to the army, John looked at the letter his girlfriend wrote to him, remembering their parting promise. No matter where they were, they would write to tell each other for one long year. Although they were separated by thousands of miles, but the two hot hearts were always close to each other. But just as John was about to be discharged from the army, September 1st incident suddenly broke out. Many of his comrades chose to extend their service, and he was torn for a long time before the righteousness of the country and love. He also chose the former. In the bustling airport, Anna looked to her right and left, looking for the man who promised to come back and marry her, but he never expected. The boyfriend she had been waiting for a year came back to say goodbye to her. When she heard that John would not retire for another 2 years, Anna was furious.
I just want to stay right here with you as long as I possibly can. And I'm trying to figure out what the right thing is to do, and I don't know what that is.
Seeing her lover on his knees and telling him his pain, the kind-hearted Anna also respected his decision. She chose to keep waiting. The rest of the night was not a good picture. The next day, John was on his way back to the army again, and his father was waiting here for a long time, and he remained silent, even though the corners of his eyes were already slightly moist. But he still could not say a word of concern. Before they left, they hugged each other tightly. Anna told him again and again, tell him to take care of himself and be safe. They continued to write to each other for the rest of their lives, to tell each other their feelings. But as time went on, Anna's letters became less and less frequent. Even a few months, no news of her, and he also had a sense of foreboding in his heart. Until this day, he waited again for a letter from Anna. Not surprisingly, this is a letter from Anna to break up, and also told John that she was about to get married. And the heartbroken John also burned all their letters, and his heart was also turned into ashes with the letters. But before he could slowly feel the sadness, but in the course of a mission, in order to rescue his teammates, he was accidentally shot several times by the enemy. When he woke up again is already a week later, but he put on his uniform before his wounds had healed. He applied to the chief to return to the battlefield.
So it's definitely extending.
The war is over, John. You served your country well.
You know what, I'm just make this a career.
And that's how he got back into the field. And the reason he did that, he's just afraid to go back home, back to the place of good memories. But it wasn't long before he received the news that his father was dying. seeing his only family member lying unattended in the hospital room. At this moment John was in a deep guilt and remorse, especially when the doctor told him his father was found only a few days after he collapsed. He realized how ungrateful he was to avoid the pain of love, neglected his closest relatives, and the father, after hearing his son's sorrowful cries, also lifted his trembling hand, trying to comfort his son. And here is the most touching scene of the movie. After sending his father away, after the war and the death of his relatives, although he had already seen a lot, but before he left, he could not resist. He went to find his love, Anna. They once told each other their love, but time has changed. The woman he had loved for years became someone else's wife.
John.
In the room John saw the wedding photo in Anna's home. His face was full of confusion, because that man was Anna's neighbor. He couldn't understand why Anna broke up with herself, and then married this widowed man. And Anna also seems to understand his confusion, so she took John to the hospital. It turned out that her neighbor was terminally ill. Seeing his wife and John together, the neighbor was not a bit angry, because he clearly knew that he was sorry for John.
Guess you must want to kick my ass, huh? I wanted to tell you that. And I'm sorry. She still loves you. It's plain as day, you can see it all over her face. She's never looked at me the way she used to look at you.
On the way back, John got the answer from Anna's mouth. It turns out that Anna's family had a change of heart. When the family was at the end of their rope, it was a neighbor who helped the family get through the difficult time. But not long after that, the neighbor was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was always kind. In order to take care of the neighbor and her son, who was a few years old, she had to break up with John. At night they had dinner together in the room. John looked at this silly woman. His heart was also full of mixed feelings.
Why didn't you call me? Did I not deserve any more explanation than...
You think it was tough out there? And what, you think it was easy for me without you? I picked up the phone 1,000 times to try to call you. You think that I really want to be standing here in front of you like this?
Looking at my lover who was losing control of her emotions. At this moment John took her into his arms with great affection. He could not say a single word of complaint. Finally, Anna took out the letters they used to write. And these, Anna's longing for John all these years. But while they were lost in the memories of the past, Anna accidentally spilled the tea in the bathroom, while Anna was changing her clothes. Their eyes met instantly. Facing such a sincere Anna, John forced himself to control himself, looking at his lover who was walking away from him. At this moment, her eyes were wet with tears. She couldn't hold back her tears, and after leaving the car, John was also in a state of grief and anger. The next day, John sold his father's coin collection. All of them were donated anonymously to Anna's husband. One day soon after that, John received a letter from Anna again. It turned out that she had already guessed that the large donation was from John, and now she was single again. 2 years later, John came back from the military and met again in a coffee shop. Through the glass window, they met again. How much love can start again? How much love can wait? At this moment, the embrace between them is worth 1,000 words. Everything seems to go back to the past, and the movie is over here. This is a movie that reminds people of their first love. In the end, they came together.